Hello everyone and welcome back to the garage. Today we're going to be working on some electrical gremlins in this little coupe behind me. Before I do that though, I think I'm going to give you a little tour of the car, show you around. It's a really nice car. It's an all steel body 36 Ford Coupe. Sits on a Pete and Jake's chassis. It's got a small block 350 in it, 350 automatic transmission. Car's been done, I'd say 6, maybe 7 years now. For the first probably 4 or 5 years, it really didn't ever get driven. Once it got completed, some things weren't exactly right on it. It wasn't tuned very well, and it just took forever for the owner to get around to getting all that stuff kind of done. It was almost like he lost interest in it after it was roadworthy, and the final 5 or 10% of the build just wasn't interesting, I guess. So anyway, I'm kind of the caretaker of this car now, and a couple of years ago I kind of got tired of seeing it sit around. It still only had maybe 200 miles on, maybe 300 miles maximum on it a couple of years ago. I've put about 1,000 miles on it since then, taken care of quite a few gremlins, but it's still technically in shakedown mode. It's still only got 1,300 miles on it or so, and still finding little things here and there that need to be addressed. And one of the things that we've recently discovered is the tail lights are not working correctly. So I'm going to be doing some electrical work on that today. But before I do, let me show you around this thing a little more closely. So here it is. I'll just do a little walk around on it. You can see it's got a beautiful paint job. I don't know if you can see it right here. Beautiful reflection. There's the dog. It's not real. That's not a real dog. It just looks like a real dog. The engine bay is it's okay. It's not a pristine engine bay. The owner's not real worried about, keeping it spotless. He's more worried about just being able to hop in it and cruise to church one morning and, be done with it. It's a little bit dated inside the engine bay, a lot of billet, which is kind of, gone to the wayside. It's not nearly as common these days. It does have air conditioning. Everything functions and works on it as far as that goes. Keeps it nice and cool. My preference though is to not mess with the air conditioning and drive around with the front window open. You'd be surprised how comfortable this car stays even on a 90-degree day here in Kansas with the humidity, with the door open or with the front window open like that. Again, this is all steel body car. There's no fiberglass running boards, nothing, all steel. Pete and Jake's chassis. It's got a Ford 9-inch rear end in it. It is an open differential rear end, which is kind of weird to me. I pretty much go straight for the Eaton True tracks whenever I redo a rear end or set a car up. But he's got an open diff. This engine's probably making 350 horsepower. On this car, that open diff, it's kind of fun because I don't think you'd really get the tires to break loose if it had a limited slip or a posi rear end in it too easy. But with the open diff, you can get that back tire spinning a little bit sometimes. You can see I've already kind of started looking around a little bit as far as what's going on with the electrical on it. So I've already got a cover plate off down here for the fuse box, and I've been kind of poking around a little bit. But here's the interior. Again, this car's been done for a little while. There's some things on it that already feel a little bit dated. I think this kind of stuff is not very popular anymore. I do like the little Ford logo in it though. Would have been nice if they'd have got the oval a little more true to Ford, but that's just personal preference. There's some details on this car that I really, really like. It's just old engineering that just makes me happy, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it. Just makes me smile. One of the big things is the crank out windshield, which the owner left on this car. And since I am the one that's usually driving it around or doing something with it, I really appreciate that window. It's just amazing. You would think that when you crack that windshield open like that, that it'd be like riding a motorcycle and you'd need to have a pair of sunglasses or something on to keep the wind out of your eyes, but it's not. I don't think that back when this car was designed that they were thinking ahead as far as engineering wise about how the air would move in the cabin, but maybe they were. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me that kind of engineering was going on back then. But the way the air flows into this thing, when you've got that crack that much, it just comes in here and it just seems to follow this profile of this roof line and just kind of swirls things around in there. Yesterday it was probably 85 here in Kansas. And a little bit of humidity, and driving this down the highway at 70 miles an hour, it was the perfect temperature in this car. You put the windows down and it's just comfortable in the car. And it amazes me that just cracking that windshield like that makes this car so comfortable. And I've driven it in much warmer weather. Last summer I took it to a Cars and Coffee event that shoot by 9 o'clock in the morning, it was already 90 here. By the time we left the event, it was probably close to 100, and never turned the air conditioning on once. Just crack that windshield open, windows down, perfectly comfortable in this car. Once you get moving, you stop, obviously you feel the heat, but when you've got that breeze going, it's perfectly comfortable in the car. It's awesome. One of the other things that I really like about this car, an original feature that's still on the car, is how the side windows work. If there's one thing that I want to show people on this car whenever they start asking questions, I go right to this window. And here's the reason why. When you start cranking this window down, watch this. I'm cranking, but watch, it's backing up right here. It's not going down, it's backing up. This is called a smoker's window. So what you get here is that first one turn on the crank, the mechanism moves the window back in the door frame. It does not come down, it just moves it straight back to create a little vent. That's your vent window. It's awesome. And I've never seen the inside of this to know how the mechanism works, but it's awesome to me. Back and forth, just about 3/4 of a crank, and that's what you get. And then once you get past that, the window stops going back and starts going down like a regular window. And then reverse. Once it gets all the way to the top, it stops, and then the other 3/4 of a crank, move the window back forward. Both windows do that, both sides. Just some little feature I geek out about it. I just think it's cool. The interior of this car is quite a bit upgraded from what it would have been when it was new. The interior is probably, the material of the interior is probably the first thing that really sticks out. Everybody assumes that this is leather and it's made to look like leather. The interesting thing is this is actually a product that was developed for the airlines, so I'm told. So they wanted something that was plush and felt good like leather, like, decent priced leather, but also has to be durable and long lasting and needs to be easily cleaned, so when somebody's kid spills their soda, during turbulence while they're flying. They can clean it up, wipe it up easily. It doesn't stain and whatnot. So this material is made to look like leather, feels a lot like leather. It's not perfect leather imitation, but it can handle being in an automobile in the sun. You don't have to treat it all the time with, you know, aloe or whatever to keep it soft and plush. And if somebody happens to get in it with a little bit of grease on their work pants, I'm not saying I've ever done that, it's easily cleaned up. Steering wheel's wrapped in it. The door panels have it on there. So if you touch it with whatever greasy fingers from Sonic, you know, or whatever, it doesn't affect it. It's easily cleaned up and brought back to this look all the time. A little bit of carpet on the floor. It's got a lot of sound deadening in this car, so it's real quiet going down the road. It's running some 2 autometer gauges. It gives you all of your vitals. Got an I Did It steering column in it with tilt, although in this particular car it's always tilted all the way down because of the angle of the steering column itself. It's pretty much worthless. I honestly, probably if it was mine, I probably wouldn't have spent the money on that, and I would have just stuck with the original, but it's personal preference. I don't know. There is some actual suede leather in this car. The headliner and the visors and this back deck back here that you can't see right now are all suede. So that does give the car a nice feel to it. But all the surfaces that you would pretty much interact with are this material, this airline type material. I wish I knew the name of this stuff. I'd tell you what it is, but I don't. I was just told that that's what this is. So now that you've had the little walk around tour, what the car is actually in here for is some electrical gremlins. The tail lights are usually not coming on at all, and when they do, they're very dim. As a matter of fact, when you see at the beginning of the video when I'm backing it in, probably didn't have tail lights. I haven't looked at the footage at this point, so I'm not sure, but I bet it doesn't. And the turn signals don't flash. The only thing that works very well is the actual parking lights or driving lights. Tail lights light up fine for that. So the first thing that we did is, I've actually run across this before on painted cars. First thing we did is pull the lenses off, and lo and behold, when the car was painted blue, the insides of the tail light buckets were painted blue also. So that was the first thing I expected, and we have corrected that with a little bit of chrome paint on the inside so it reflects the light well. After we fixed that little problem, we were checking to make sure the lights were all working correctly, and that's when we discovered the tail lights are not working correctly. And I've already done some diagnosis on that. Here's the problem with the tail lights. On this particular car, it uses a brake line pressure switch to activate the brakes. In this case, this is the switch that he's using, which is a Standard Products SL-S27 switch. This has a current rating of about 4 amps on it. And it probably worked for a little while, but it appears now that the contacts are burned up in it. So I'm going to replace this switch, and then we're going to modify the circuit a little bit. Probably something that should have been done right from the start, and nobody paid attention to the current rating on this. We're actually going to, or what I'm going to do, is I'm going to put a relay in. So this will now actually trip the ground on the relay. So when you Push on the brakes, contacts meet in here. This will complete the circuit for ground. The relay will then come on, and the relay will power the lights, not this switch. Voila. Okay, the back of the car is all squared away. So here we are on the front. This car does not have parking lights. It only has turn signals in the front. And in this case, very easy to spot what has happened. I think there should be a connector on the end of that bare wire. So here's my tip of the day, or bitch, moan, a complaint, whichever you want to call it. If you're going to use crimp connectors, I highly recommend that after you crimp your connector onto your wire, that you go back and you solder them in place. What's happened on the front of this car, and I suspect it's going to happen again because there are crimp connectors all over this car, is that the crimp was not secure and the wire ended up coming out of the crimp. So now we have a hot wire hanging out up here, shorting things out. 36 Coupe is all fixed up. All the problems that it came in for have been addressed. The only thing that's left to do now is go for a cruise. See you guys later. Take care.